And quite honestly, it's not something I really want to remember anyway.
On Sunday, April the 9th, 2006, our lives changed dramatically. Steve was involved in a motor vehicle accident and as a result suffered not only physical injuries but a traumatic brain injury. My phone rang. She said, "Look, I regret to inform you that your husband's had been in a serious car accident and he's been airlifted to Westmead Hospital." I get chills now even just thinking about that conversation. There was doctors and nurses everywhere. He was completely stripped off with a white sheet over him and he had tubes coming out of basically every opening. They allowed me to hold his hand, but he was cold.
He was quite a handful in the brain injury rehab unit. He was displaying a lot of the features that we see that are typical of people who have had frontal lobe impairment in their brain injury.
Ooh, what?
What were you up to doing, Stephen?
What was I up to doing? Good question. What was I up to doing?
You were finishing making your toast.
Yes, I was.
The frontal lobes and the front part of the temporal lobes are particularly susceptible to trauma. And the importance of that is the frontal lobes are absolutely necessary for us to live successfully and independent in the environment, in our world.
So Steve and I's relationship was pretty good before he had the accident. We were really, really happy. So the thoughts around, was Steve going to survive or wasn't he going to survive, definitely entered into my mind. Once I realised that he was going to survive, it was then what was life going to be like after that? How critical was the brain injury going to be? And it was months and months and months before I started seeing the impact of the rehab and that his personality was always there, but how was that going to fit with the Steve that I'd known prior to the accident?
Andrea is definitely a rock in my life, and probably more so in the last 2 years during my rowing career than she has ever been in the past.
To see him be passionate about something all over again is pretty exciting. The natural high he gets from it when he comes off at the end, and no matter what he's done, he's just so pleased with what he's achieved.
The lady performed very well over the national championships also. Crossing the line there, he went to Balmain Rowing Club and Craig Stephen Knox.
The relationship I have with my coaches has grown stronger over the last 12 months. I will be indebted to them for a period of time for the amount of coaching that they have actually given me on the water. There is no doubt that without their coaching, I would not have come as far as I have.
When Steve first started rowing, while he had the attitude of a champion, he didn't have the technique, the mental ability or the physical ability. Now that was all affected by his accident and by the disabilities he was left with. But under all of that, you could always tell that Steve wanted to be a champion. Steve can be very frustrating, but equally he can be frustrated by the same voice. So there are times on the water where if I'm asking him to do something, it doesn't click, it doesn't gel, so we swap voices. I'll sit at the back and drive, Anne will come forward, and she can get through what needs to be done. And it works well. And there are times when Steve is just fed up with both of us.
My personal trainer, Ben Lai, has brought a lot to my life. He's really inspired me to peak at fitness before the National Championships last year.
Steve is now in a sport that, number one, he had no experience in whatsoever before his injury, before his accident. The second thing is the nature of Steve's accident. When Steve first got injured, he lost nearly all cognitive functioning. He lost all control over all of his limbs, and he basically had to be retaught how to do something simple like butter a piece of toast. He has a couple of pins that have been put through his arm which limit the extension of one arm, so he can't use machines that run on one set station or one set range of motion. He's also got one leg shorter than the other, which we have to take into account because that puts out hip placement and knee placement. So for him, I need to do functional movements that are very, very high intensity and are very functional for his sport to make him better and the best that he can be.
8, tight chest, let's go. 9, come on, drive, come on. 10, you get number 1 one way, let's go. Up, 1.
To have a short leg and to have not be able to straighten my left arm, it doesn't make me feel any less efficient than I could be. Ultimately, I've learnt to deal with it.
So he's limited in what he can do. An able-bodied rower would have picked up the stroke much quicker. But over 1,000 metres at the moment, he is actually looking like an able-bodied rower.
Traumatic brain injury is frequently referred to as the invisible disability. Outwardly, they might look fine, but they don't necessarily see the difficulties at home that the person faces. They certainly don't know how difficult it is for the person who's suffering from that brain injury to interact with people.
In terms of our relationship pre and post accident, I think I feel at times I have much more of a carer's responsibility, so different to, you know, a wife's normal caring. I have to take responsibility for making sure that Steve's at places and doing things when he should be, and that would be different to what it was prior to the accident.
When people suffer the frontal injury, they often think more about themselves than others, and that can rub people up the wrong way. Even people who have been friends for many years can find that the person has changed. The person themselves mightn't be fully aware of the severity of that problem, and as a result we often see that friendships disappear. Even very close and intimate friendships are at risk following severe traumatic brain injury.
When you have a near-death experience, it really highlights to you who are your friends and who are not your real friends.
Doggy Rescue is really important to Steve, and it was the start of his journey for creating a new community around him. He's made so many friends, not only the 4-legged variety but also the 2-legged variety. At Doggy Rescue, because, let me be honest, all of them have been neglected, some of them will just look up at me and go, "Really, food? I don't want food, just hug me." So I pick them up and give them a little scratch. This is Bernard, and he's been here for quite a long time, but he knows me and he likes his food, don't you, mate? He can't talk, but he would say, "Yes, I do like my food." So it makes me feel great because I actually, apart from having a relationship with people at Doggy Rescue, I actually have more of a relationship with the dogs, because the dogs recognise me when I walk in and they bark at me and they go, "G'day Bernard." "Rico, what's happening?" I know the dog's names. He's one of my favourites. Actually, going to Doggy Rescue makes me feel like I'm giving something back to the community, because I volunteer my time there on Mondays and go there and feed the dogs. Makes me feel good.
And the winners now from Balmain Rowing Club, Ian Craig and Stephen Knott, coached by Red